Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another Kickstarter preview and a review combined into one. And simply due to my time, I don't have a gameplay overview for either of these games, but I'll do my best to talk about it a little bit. And so the games that we're talking about today are Davy Jones Locker, the Kraken Wakes, and at the end of this video we'll be talking about the expansion, which is Davy Jones Locker, Curse of the Ghost Ships. And the Ghost Ships here, this is the one that is the expansion and is the Kickstarter preview. So, slightly confusing, but here we go. And so, jumping right in, what this game is it is a pirate-themed, somewhat supernatural boss battler style game. However, instead of just kind of jumping right into the boss battling, you start out by sailing around the board, and there's these 4 ports and kind of pirate island in the middle, and sailing around the board, exploring the port, shopping, doing smuggling, attacking treasure galleons, exploring shipwrecks, and getting in all kinds of trouble that you might get in on the open sea. And as you're doing that, you are hopefully getting new items and gear that's going to help you anytime you have some kind of test you have to do. Now, tests are based on your individual ship, and each ship is a little bit different. Each ship has a power that it's going to have for the exploration phase, and that card will kind of flip over and you get a different power for the secondary phase of the game, which is the boss fight. But there are 4 different stats that you're tracking. You're tracking your cannon stat, your sailing ability, your hull, and your repair ability. And a la Betrayal at the House on the Hill, these are going to go up and down, kind of tick up and they'll tick down, though you don't necessarily get better or worse by ticking up or down. It's just going to tell you how many dice you have. So you might start out with a 3 dice cannon roll and you improve by 1 and you're still 3 dice. Or you might go down by 1 and become a 2, or maybe you stay as a 3, whatever, it's that kind of thing. And as I said, it relates directly to the type of dice you're going to roll. And then anytime you have to make a check, you're going to chuck those dice and you're looking for skulls and crossbones. Those are your successes, and every card will tell you what a different number of successes is going to do. And there's a little bit of mitigation depending on what kind of gear you've picked up, what your ability is, etc., etc., etc. But you're going to play through for just a couple of rounds. Usually I think it's 4, and as you're playing through, every round a new event's going to come out, and that event's going to do something to the board state. It might be a benefit where things are cheaper for you, it might be water spouts that come up, it might be something that happens with the trade winds, it might be a merchant, all those different things will happen. Then at the same time, every time you sail, as I mentioned, things might happen on the open sea. Every time you sail, you have to flip over one of those open sea cards. And either it's going to be some kind of thing that happens, usually involving a test you have to make, or it's going to be a Kraken ability card. And this is one of the things that will trigger Act 2. Because if you get too many of those cards out, those are abilities that the Kraken's going to get when you fight it in Act 2. And once you get X amount of them, it will immediately trigger Act 2 of the game, which is a boss fight. Same thing's going to happen when you run out of event cards. You will immediately trigger the next act. So let's talk about that next act. In the second act, you are now moved to sailing around the board and battling the Kraken. The Kraken's a huge head in the middle of the board, and every round his tentacles are going to move a little bit and attack, and you can kill the tentacles. You can defeat them, and I guess they kind of sink under the water, though they do occasionally come back, depending on what card you flip, because at the beginning of every round, you're going to flip a whirlpool card, which is going to move you one direction on the whirlpool, and maybe push you out or pull you in. After the tentacles are going to go, the Kraken gets to attack, and based on where you are on the board, how close you are to the Kraken is going to determine how much damage you're going to take. But you're going to chuck a bunch of dice, and those dice are going to correlate to different quadrants, or I guess eighths? Octants? Is that the word, an octant? Octants on the board, where if you're in that octant, you are safe. And as you hurt the Kraken more, the tentacles may come back. As you hurt the Kraken more, the different areas that are safe around the board are going to become less and less, and so on, and so on, and so on. And you're going to play around, same type of thing, taking your 3 actions that you have to sail, attack, shoot, and try not to die. And either you defeat the Kraken, or you sink. Now here's the thing. Once one of the ship sinks, they're not out of the game. What happens is you put a little sailor that's kind of swimming around in the water, and then another ship can go pick them up. And then they flip their board over, and now they have a mini game with their sailor meeples that they have, where they kind of move around the board, and they will be able to boost the ship that they're on. And each one of those is a slightly different on the back as well. And that's pretty much how this game works. So what do I like about this game? Well, first off, I like kind of the theme around it. I like the kind of piratey feel. I really like the exploration vibe of the first act. I love that every time you sail, something's going to happen. I like the difficulty involved with chasing down shipwrecks or treasure galleons. I like exploring the different ports. I like all of those things. I find it very engaging and very enjoyable, and chucking dice is always fun. And while I'm on the dice, it has these wooden dice, and I don't always love wooden dice, but something about it for this game just kind of feels right. And along with that, it's a very good production. It's got great game trays. It has some of the best coins that you have ever come across. The coins are amazing. The ships are cool. All of it is a very, very strong production, with the exception of one thing that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit when I get to my quibbles. But as I said, I like the exploration, and I like that there's a decent amount of tension that you are going through because you don't have a lot of time to buff yourself. But it's never safe to buff yourself. There's always something going on that might be bad, that might screw you up, and might actually hurt you. So there's a nice tension that goes along with the relatively brief game time that you're going around and kind of buffing yourself up. And the last thing I'll say about Act 1 is I like that it really does encourage you to cooperate, because the big values are the shipwrecks and the treasure galleons. But those are very, very hard to defeat, so you have to work together. And if someone's close enough, you can work together and kind of pull them to you, and off you go. And I really appreciate that it encourages that collaboration. And when you find treasures, some people will synergize perfectly with that treasure, and will even tell you on the card, if you have this specific ability, it's better. And so that encourages you to get together and trade. Just really, really well done. Now let's talk about Act 2. I think the boss battle's great. It's hard. Well, at least it's always... See, I say it's hard, and then I think about it and say, well, haven't lost. I've never actually lost yet, but it feels like it's really hard. So I always feel good when I happen to win at the end. But it's challenging, it feels tough, it always feels like you don't know what the right choice to make is, it feels like you don't have a chance, and then somehow you're going to be able to kind of pull it back together and you're going to be able to do it. But what really makes it work is what happens when someone is sunk. That little mini game where you pick them up and they do stuff on your board, it's so cool. It's so cool that the last time I played, I was sad I didn't sink because I wanted to play that mini game. And I think that's just really, really clever and really, really inspired. So what are my quibbles with the game? So I'll start out with the one problem I have with the production of the game. And so when you fight the Kraken, there's tentacles that are out, and they can have up to 3 hit points each. I believe it's 3. And there are D4s that you use to kind of track how much health they have. But the problem is they're D4s with a different number on every side. So unless you have set the board in a position to where everyone has the same perspective on it, everyone's gonna see a different number on the die. And I don't know what the answer is. Well, I think the answer is they should just be some D6s and just have 2 zeros on them or whatever. But yeah, it just doesn't quite work. And for a game that is so well done with the production everywhere else, it stands out to me. The next thing I want to say is there are a bunch of different decks that you put out on the board. Market and exploration for each different port you can go to. And there's a big stack of open sea cards, and then a stack of treasure cards and shipwreck cards. And there just needs to be more of at least the treasure and the shipwreck cards, because there's only a few, and there needs to be more, because I want to keep playing this game, and I want to not be able to feel like I can just kind of farm the deck to get the thing that I need or that I want specifically. So I feel like those need to be thicker, they need to be bigger, more in there to kind of keep the game interesting, keep you wanting to come back. Along with that, there is a bit of, I'm just going to say, just randomness that comes with exploring the different ports, because you're going to go there and you have an idea of the type of skills that usually you need at different ports. But it's totally random what you're going to pull. And sometimes you pull something and you just don't have a chance. And that might feel frustrating. And for someone like me that kind of likes chaos, like, it's okay. But there are some people I play with that definitely rub them the wrong way. That there's just nothing they can do. And so you have to understand that there is some extreme randomness there. Same thing with all of your tests. You're chucking dice. I mean, you are chucking dice, and there are blanks on those dice. You may roll 8 dice and get nothing. It can happen. It has happened. And so it's just something to be aware of. Then the last two things that I'm going to say is, first off, the game really needs more variety in boss. There's one boss, and it's always going to be the same. Now, that is addressed with the expansion that's about to hit Kickstarters on Kickstarter probably right now, and that's going to be kind of the second half of this video. That is a new boss that you're doing, but it's just when you just have the core game, you only have the one boss, and yes, it is always a little bit different, kind of the different Kraken powers that come out, but it's pretty much the same type of fight. And so it does need a little more variety there. And then the last thing I'm going to say is, it's a longer game than I think it's going to be. And it's not the best way to describe it, but it just is. Every time I play, it's more than 2 hours long. And that might be because every time I've played that I haven't played by myself, and the times I've played just solo, there's been a whole bunch of stuff going on, so I can't really count that. But we've had to either all learn the game new, or teach at least one person the game new, or we're trying the expansion for the first time. So that might be part of it, but it's a longer game than you think it's going to be, especially during Act 1, because you're actually only going to do maybe 4 or 5 rounds, but for whatever reason, it just takes a long time. And I enjoy it, but it is a longer game. And so there you have it, folks. That is Davy Jones Locker, The Kraken Wakes. I am high on this game. I really am high on this game. I really like it a lot. I'm planning to paint up the Kraken, paint up the boats, and if you know me, when I start painting something, that means I'm really, really digging it. So I'm excited by it, and I'm particularly also excited about the expansion, which, as I said, adds these kind of ghost pirates. And so right now there's going to be a really weird shift to where it's going to be myself and Original Don, and we're talking about the Ghost Pirate expansion pretty much right after we played it, maybe the day after we played it together, and I played it once or twice more by myself. But there you have it, folks. As always, if you found this video, I guess I shouldn't say that. I don't know if I say it now. You know, yeah, I'm going to say it now. So if you're just done, you're done with my face, you're done with the game, you know how you feel, you don't care about the expansion, then, as always, thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. For those of you who are going to stick around, here we go. I'm going to be slightly younger and in different clothes, and with the brains of the operation, co-designer of Backyard Chickens, Original Don. Okay, everybody, so now I'm joined by Original Chicken Don, my sometimes occasional co-host, who spent some time playing through the expansion of Davy Jones Locker with me this past weekend. And he's also played, though only once, but he's also played through the core game of Davy Jones Locker, the Kraken Awakes version. And so, all in all, what this is doing is it's just changing your boss fight. It has a few mechanics here and there. Mostly it adds this haunting mechanic where you can draw cursed gold out of a bag. All the gold goes into a bag now. And if you draw that, your ship gets haunted, your ship gets damaged every round. And there are these portals on the board, which you have to go through these portals to, I'm going to call it Pirate Island. It's not called Pirate Island. I think it's called Phantom Island. It's not Skull Island.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it says something island. And when you go to this island, there's two things you do there. One, you can unhaunt yourself by dropping off some cursed gold. And you have to drop off X amount of cursed gold, because if you don't, you get hurt when you go into the final fight. And you have this push your luck game where you're kind of moving across the map with one of your boatmen to pick up these spectral items. And what's important here is if you have no spectral items, you cannot hurt anything in the end game. Then the end game itself, you're fighting the Banshee and it's ghost ships that are kind of moving around. And so it becomes a little more like a naval fight. Whereas in the previous game, it's just the Kraken that you're fighting the tentacles and all of that. And you're still able to go back to Phantom Island to get what are called grimoires, which are like bonuses to try to protect you because as you're playing, you're getting cursed. And if you get cursed too much, you get possessed. And then when you're possessed, you have to attack your allies before you can do everything every round. And so those are kind of the new mechanics. Really, we're talking, it's a new boss, is what it is. But all of that said, we played a prototype version of it. So it's a little bit rough around the edges. But all in all, how did you feel this one compared to the Kraken fight, Don?
It's funny, we played the abbreviated version, the quick game,
That's true.
according to the
I
rules in
should
the
I should
rulebook.
tell everybody I took the fast start rules from the Kraken version and just kind of shoehorned this in. So I'm positive that the fast start for the Ghost Pirates will be slightly different because there's definitely some things like, I don't think that really worked. We probably should have had another round or something. But as best we could, we tried the quick start version so our third player could stay the whole time.
And it was fun. I was gonna say we played the quick start version, and somehow it felt almost as long as the full game with the Kraken. I don't know if it's because we were figuring it out, but, it's interesting. I like the variability of having a different boss. It was a lot of fun. The Banshee is a big ghost ship, in case that wasn't clear to anybody. So there's the Banshee, which is a big ghost ship, and then there's a bunch of little ghost ships going around. Um, I think playing the quick start kind of cost us some of the engine building you get to do on the first side of the board. Normally you're going
100%.
around
Yeah.
building up your engine, making your ships more powerful, and then you get to the second part of the game and you flip the board and you fight the boss. And we did that full experience with the Kraken, and I don't know that I would want to play it another way. And this is a really good convention game. Like this is the kind of game where you're in the mood to just sit and just experience a long thing, right? Like when you're at a game night and you're trying to turn out 3 or 4 games, this maybe isn't the one to try to fit in there because it's a long experience and
Yeah,
you need to be patient
it
with it.
is a deceptively long game, and
Yeah.
I've played the core version several times and played it with some other people as well after I'd really learned it and could teach it faster. And it is faster, but it's not as fast as you think, which is,
Hmm.
and I don't understand why. I don't think that the Ghost Ship one is necessarily longer. Though in theory, it can be longer because whereas the Kraken has you have X amount of whirlpool cards that you're going to turn, with the Ghost Pirates, it's either you die or you win. And you
Mhm.
will shuffle the Banshee, it's not called Banshee cards, but the Banshee cards over and over again. And you kind of keep going through. So in theory, it could be longer. What did you think about the kind of the push your luck mini game and kind of going to Phantom Island and chasing down those items and the kind of the choices that you had to make there?
It's an interesting way to get kind of bonus cards. The cards that you get give you special abilities that are useful in the second part of the game. So that's cool. It wasn't the most interesting push your luck thing in the world. It's like you move up to the next space and you draw this many cards, and if they're bad, then something bad happens to you. And if you get 3 bad cards, then
You
you've
bust.
lost,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
don't get any cool cards. But if you get all the way to the other end of the island, you get to draw a bunch and keep 2.
I mean, to be
And
fair, you could
yeah,
have stopped. And we both
yeah.
are like, you should probably stop, Don. You're like, I'm gonna do it.
I think it's really just not one of those push your luck experiences where you feel like there's value in stopping. Like stopping at step 2 is draw 3 cards, keep 1,
It's something. I
and
think it's
then
for step one is draw one, keep one. Then I think it is draw two, keep one. Then draw three, keep two.
yeah. And so you're like, if I don't push to step 3, I don't get 2 cards. And
Mhm.
so every time I tried to get to step 3, and I only did it 2 or 3 times, and only once did I fail.
That's
But
true.
like it's not the kind of push your luck where you just feel like, okay, I'm gonna stop. There are only so many white chip. There's a bunch of white chips in my bag, and I don't want to pull them up and blow up my cauldron. And that's a Quacks reference for anybody who hasn't played it. But
Wah.
You know, there's that point with Quacks of Quedlinburg where you're just like, "I know this is too dangerous to go on," and this I mean, granted, this is a little mini experience in the part
Yeah.
of a much bigger game, but I don't know, it wasn't an exciting mini game. Did I like the powers that it gave me? Yeah, they were great, but, it adds something. It's just it's not
Right. Yeah,
earth-shattering.
I liked doing it. I
Yeah,
found it interesting, and I shared this feedback with the designer, and there is a possibility of this being changed a little bit. My big thing was I wanted more variety in the cards in the search deck, because either it is you found a path, keep walking. It's a hex, which is bad, and there's a few cards in there which are secret passage, skip to the end. And
yep,
I just want more in there. Like they can be you still move on, or they can be there's still a heck, like whatever. But just give me more variety, and that makes that mini game a little more interesting to me. And to your point about needing to get to the end, you have to get a certain amount of cursed gold dropped off on the island, or bad news. Also, that's also the end game trigger. But it is not easy to get cursed gold if you're not on Phantom Island.
true.
Probably 40% of those cards are add 3 cursed gold to your stack. So it's almost necessary that you go there, which does make a little bit of an interesting thing to your point of needing to go to the end, because drawing 2 cards can get you some cursed gold, which we need, and an item which you have to hurt the boss at the end. Though I do think it's maybe an interesting kind of experience to have someone go into the last fight and they can't hurt anything. And then what did they do to help? You know, how do they get involved? Do they just try to get themselves sunk real quick and get picked up? Like so, it's an
Yeah,
interesting little thing, which didn't happen in our game. And the I played a couple more games solo or multi-handing it, and it didn't happen there either. But
yeah, it's a
uh,
shame nobody sank
I know
because
I
that would have
think
been
that is
interesting to
the
experience.
coolest part. I think of the game, and the last few times I've played, no one has sunk. And I do feel like every time I've played, I've been sure that we were going to die, and we haven't. I've actually won
Right.
every time I've played. But yeah, I think the sinking is just it's such a cool mechanic. It's not changed in the Ghost Ship one, but yeah, it's so cool. But you know, we're starting to kind of drag on here. We kind of mixed up our quibbles and things that we like all together, which is fine. I think, and you can agree or disagree with me here. I felt like this was it's a really good expansion on what is there. It's not going to make you like the game if you didn't,
Mhm.
but if you like it, it's going to give you some variety, and it still needs some development and refinement, which makes sense because it's still a prototype. That's kind of how I felt about it.
Agreed. If you love the original game, you're probably gonna enjoy the variety of having this extra boss, and, yeah, I'm sure they're gonna do some fine tuning on it.
Mhm.
It was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
would you play again?
Yeah, I would. Like I said, I think this is for when you have, like, limitless time isn't the right word, but, like, when you're at a con and you don't have anywhere to be,
Hmm.
like, this is the kinda game that's fun to play.
Yeah,
The kinda game
or
where
it's a
indeterminate amount of time.
yeah, or it's a one game night, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, that kinda thing.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so they have folks that is the expansion for Davy Jones Locker. Obviously, at the beginning of this video, you have my thoughts on the core game. And as always, Don, I really appreciate you being here and giving us the real thoughts, not my drivel. As always, everyone, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.